All right. We are on episode 6 here, or conversation number 6 is what I should say of 7-day worship. My name is Casey Klocek. I've been a worship pastor and an entrepreneur for about 18 years. And I am here with some really amazing people to talk about Christian entrepreneurship. If you are watching this, either in the future or if you're watching it live, I just want to invite you to just pray over the things that God has in your life, to ask the question, what am I doing from Monday to Saturday to hold him at the highest elevation, to put him up, and hopefully today, as we introduce Dianna and Yesuto Shaw and what God has called them to do, you can see how every single day can be something that you worship the Lord with, that you put him in the highest, and that Sunday can just become a celebration of all of that. And so let's go ahead and get into it here. I just want to introduce each other real quick. Chris, why don't you go ahead and tell us who you are and what do you do, and then we'll get into you, Dianna and Yesuto.
Perfect.
Hey, what's up? I'm here. I want to be known as a worshiper. I'm putting all my time and energy into what does it mean to live the John 15 abiding life. So I want to disciple myself, disciple others into the kingdom living on earth as it is in heaven.
Right.
Short story, but I do a lot of that through, I'm a drummer, so through, a lot of relationships with musicians and people pursuing the creative arts.
Awesome. Thank you. Dianna, Yesuto, you guys want to introduce yourselves? Who are you and what do you do?
Who are we? Yes, I can start and then can kick it off. So I'm Dianna. I am currently CEO and co-founder of a startup called Opto AI, which we'll talk about in a little bit. It's our own startup. I grew up in Florida, spent a few years after college at bigger companies like Deloitte, Capital One. Very quickly realized I was more of an entrepreneur at heart, and the big company life was not for me. So went to business school, was really trying to figure out what God had in store for me. And very long story short, I went to business school thinking I was going to do one thing and go more like the impact investing route. I was really inspired by a lot of like the faith-driven entrepreneur, faith-driven investor content. But little did I know that during business school was when God would plant the seeds for the startup that we are now working on. Yesuto and I have been married for 5.5 years. We got married here in Florida, and we currently live in San Francisco.
Great.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can go ahead. She says here in Florida because we're visiting some of her family in Gainesville, Florida right now. But yes, my name is Yesuto. I'm from Atlanta originally, but like Dianna said, we live in San Francisco now. I'm currently a product manager at LinkedIn and also the chief product officer and co-founder of Opto AI. So I'm doing the evening and weekend kind of building the 5 to 9 after the 9 to 5. One of the trends people talk about these days. But yeah, for me, I actually studied psychology in undergrad and then decided that I was really interested in business strategy. And so I've been kind of merging the two throughout the last 10 years of my career. Worked in consulting straight out of college. And then I moved over to Capital One, where I worked as a business analyst for 5 years. And by the way, can you guys still hear us okay? I think our video's frozen.
Yep, there we go. Okay. Snap back.
Cool, worst case, we can switch laptops. So we might do that in a minute, just so you don't get the awkwardly frozen.
No worries. Yes. We heard you the whole time, though. So
great. That's good to know. Yeah. But yeah, then like Dianna said, we both went to business school in Chicago. I was at Kellogg. She was at Booth, crosstown rivals, but we were already married, and we were in a position where we both were struggling a lot with finances and with fighting about money more than we expected to be. And so it was more expensive than we thought it would be. Neither of us were working. We were burning down our savings, and we were like, there's got to be a better system. So we actually decided, well, why don't we try to build an app that works well for managing finances in like an irregular phase of life. And the startup we have now, which we'll talk about more, but it also focuses on the emotional and relational side of managing money. Outside of that, real quick, we're both actually on the leadership team of our church in San Francisco. It's a non-denominational church, only about 50 people, but we both actually preach in the rotation, and then we're both in the process of ordination to become assistant pastor.
Wow.
So we do a lot of spiritual stuff on that side of our lives. And I'm actually also a part-time student at Fuller Seminary down in Pasadena. So
Yeah.
trying to balance.
I always joke. I feel like people probably can tell by the end of our introduction that we don't have kids yet. They're
Yeah.
like, too many things outside of work to maybe have kids. But.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that is a full plate.
For sure.
Wow. Well, tell me a little bit about this. I mean, you kind of talked about how you guys met a little bit, like briefly, but let's dig into that for a second. What were you guys like when you guys, let's go before that actually. How did you get Christ and say, this is what I want to do? Went to college with that in mind. What was the reason for that? And how did God kind of point you guys into the direction that you're currently on? So what was it like in that journey?
Do you want to start?
Why don't you go for it?
Yeah, and just to make sure I cut the question. So how did, is it part of our faith story, and then how that points to the work?
Yeah, let's hear a little bit about how you came to know Christ and where he's taking you and how he's turned that up into
Totally. So I had kind of, I say, I grew up like around the church. My family wouldn't go to church every Sunday per se. We'd have to go on like the major holidays, and my parents sent us to like the vacation Bible school for the summer. I think my parents especially like had different connections to the Christian faith, but didn't like practice like as actively. But I think they thought it was great for us as kids. I think they figured we wouldn't get in that much trouble for hanging out with church kids. So my sister started going to youth group, and as a good younger sister, I had to copy her. So I also started going to youth group around middle school, and everything checked out. And when people told me like, God loves you, God is real, like he's powerful, it's like, cool, like makes sense. I didn't really question as much, but I like it vibed with what I knew at the time. And then I'd say when I went to high school is when I feel like those ideas that I was taught about God started to really clash with, I think, what I was observing about the world, which is that there's a lot of pain and suffering. So now as I was wrestling with, well, I was told there's a all-powerful, all-loving God. And yet I'm also looking at a world where I'm starting to learn about things like human trafficking. I'm having more and more friends have like mental health issues. So I'm just seeing a lot more suffering. I was going through my own issues at the time. So that's when I think I was like, well, slowly but surely I started to wonder, how do I actually believe this? Like, how is this true? And very long story short, my junior year of high school, I went to youth group one day, and the pastor of the church was like, oh, how's it going? And I was like, good, how are you? You know, like put on a face. And he just saw right through it. And he was like lovingly was like, I think he just caught that I, was putting on a front, and asked if I wanted to like chat more about it. And I took him up on that. I was just like, I think I like all the frustration, like everything just came flooding out, and I was like crying and like mad and like all these things. And at the end of that, I felt like I felt the presence of the Holy Spirit really, probably, and not to say I hadn't felt him before, but really in a real way for the first time. Like I felt like Jesus was like in the room with me, so much so that I started smiling, and I was like, this poor pastor just saw me like go from like crying to smiling like in an instant. But I just really felt the Holy Spirit just be like, yeah, it's okay. And even though I didn't have all the answers, I knew that God was real, and that's all I needed to know at the time. Yeah. So that's what really kind of started my journey. And I'm sure we'll talk about this more, but the quick arc of it is that I'd always thought about then my career being designed to help people. And I think what the narrative that I've realized through like college and then like early years of after college was, I think I just subconsciously internalized this pressure of like, I now have to do something to help other people. And God is like putting that pressure on me because that's how we love people. So I think it's only in the last few years, especially from business school onwards, that God is now taking me to a whole deeper level, which is I get to be a part of it. But I think I was just always still running under this like performance mentality. And I like, the way I described it to a small group recently is that like, it's kind of like if you're sitting in a chair, but you're still doing a squat because you want to hold yourself up in case the chair falls through. Like, I think that's the kind of faith I always had of like, yeah, I trust that God's my everything, but I want to make sure I'm still holding myself up in case God lets me down. And so I think this season is like, oh, how much do I really trust God? Do I really trust him so much that I know that I don't have to earn a single thing at the end of the day? I get to, but I don't have to. And so that comes like, we'll talk about this in a bit with entrepreneurship. That's really challenging when like you want to build something, you do want to do something, and how quickly all of a sudden that like temptation to make it about you comes back. But yeah, I just feel like God's kind of like healing a lot of still that performance mentality in me lately. while still keeping that passion for, it's great to like be able to do things for other people. I think I covered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, so my story is pretty different in a lot of ways. So I grew up in a pretty devoutly Christian home where it was also a small church. We were in the church that was about 100 people. My dad was an elder in the church. He started preaching over time as I was hitting my teenage years. My mom was the chief administrator of the church, so she was running all the books and printing the programs every week. So we were always there early and leaving late. And so we were kind of fully church kids. And I was fully into it. I'm very much a perfectionist, very studious. And so I was reading the Bible thoroughly, read it all the way through by the time I was 13. And so I was like, okay, great. I'm on it. Grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, which I would say I would put in the category of more legalistic, honestly, in terms of like following a lot of rules very closely. And so that was me. Went to college and I was ready to go evangelize. I was at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire, which is a pretty liberal school, though there were some pretty good Christian communities there as well. And so I was talking to everybody about Jesus, to be honest. It was like everybody on the floor I lived on, I think, got a little tired. I was handing out tracts. I was that kid. And so then by the time I was into sophomore year, though, I had a lot of good conversations with people of different faiths. And a lot of these conversations were like, well, you're nice, but I don't know if this is true. Like, I have these beliefs or I don't believe anything. And like, I don't really see enough reason to believe in Christianity. And I was like, well, it's true because it's true. And I realized I didn't have actually a good enough argument for, well, if you grew up in a different religion and you were told your whole life that was true, why is my religion true? How am I sure that I'm not the one who grew up being told one thing that was wrong my whole life? And so it really actually got me thinking. And I started digging into some of the more, let's call it hyper literalist beliefs of my church growing up. Even things like, anti-evolution, the world is 6,000 years old. Like, I just didn't feel like it aligned with science, what I was learning. And so I was like, am I sure about all of these other things? And then I realized too that I was striving so hard to be a perfect Christian and I just was not happy. I was honestly miserable living this legalistic lifestyle. And so I was like, everyone else around me is doing all the things I was told not to do, partying, dating and all these things where it's just like living in a worldly lifestyle. They seem to be enjoying their lives a lot more than me. And I was like, I don't know if this is true. So I ended up giving up Christianity entirely. I was like, I'm done with this. I'm going to take this load off my shoulders and I'm just going to live my life a little bit more easily and a little bit more at peace with myself. And the world, I feel like the floor fell out from under me. I felt like I had no foundation anymore. I'd built my whole life on this message. Surely, I feel like it was the right decision. Like I actually started to get into a much better place from a mental health perspective, from an emotional peace perspective. And I was like, wow, I'm actually now free from this burden I've been carrying for my, my entire teenage years and into college. Fast forward about 4 years, I moved to DC. I was working in consulting, work hard, play hard lifestyle, working like 60, 70 hours a week, going out every Friday, Saturday night. And I was having a lot of fun. And I did that for a year, 2 years. And then at some point I was like, well, how much longer do you just do this? Am I just going to party for my whole life? Like it started to get old. It started to get repetitive. And then I started feeling like, oh, I hurt someone's feelings here when I was drunk. I did this, I did that. And these things where it's like, I didn't really intend to live in a way where I was hurting other people, but I was doing things that I felt like were not as caring and kind as I had wanted to live. And then I was like, well, I could use a bit more moral guidance in life. Simultaneously, as I was looking at the people up at the track that I was getting my promotion opportunities, I was like, those people, the partners at the consulting firm, even the senior managers, they don't seem happy. Like they just spend all their time working. They don't see their families very much. And even when you get promoted, you want to get to that next promotion too. It's like this endless ladder. So I was like, I don't really necessarily want to go that path either. So like this work hard wasn't working, the play hard wasn't working. So I was like, actually, maybe there's something I'm missing here. And that's when I decided maybe I threw out the baby with the bathwater. Maybe there's something to spirituality, and it just wasn't exactly what I had grown up with or what I was looking for at the time. And so I started exploring it again. Fast forward, long story short, started talking to different Christian friends again, listening to how they experience Christianity. That's actually right when Dianna and I started dating. And I was not a Christian, but I was kind of curious about coming back to Christianity. She was still a Christian. She was not necessarily sure she should be dating someone who was not a Christian.
Well, I kept saying the word dating.
So we had a lot of,
we're not dating. We're just hanging out.
just hanging out. Exactly. So we had a lot of like tension there, but also a lot of growth. And I think what I learned was she saw God in a way that she saw him. Well, I saw him first as a judge. I saw him as someone who was watching me closely to see if I was going to mess up and, rating my actions, making sure I was a good Christian. She saw him as a father who really cared for her, who loved her, who wanted to be with her, and would correct her when she was going down a path that could be dangerous or was doing something that could be harmful to someone else, right? But ultimately, it was the love first and that care, whereas I said I believed in a God of love, but I didn't really know what that looked like. Slowly but surely, I read through the words of Jesus again. I was reading the Gospels again, and I was like, wow, this is clicking for me as an adult in a way that it never quite did as a kid. And I ended up coming back to Christianity. I know I've talked for a while, but basically, I think the key takeaway, I think for me has been just really being open-minded. Number one, I think I was too certain about my faith in one way as I was growing up as a teenager. And then when there were some cracks, I was like, well, then the whole foundation's gone. Whereas now I think I'm starting to learn, like, I don't know everything and that's okay. Let's kind of, follow the path as I learn new things. Let me follow what seems best, what I'm learning. And then be open-minded to maybe there's something I do have wrong. Well, let's learn, let's grow. Let's take on the opinions and perspectives of others. And I think that's how I've been approaching my career as well, which we'll get into.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting. And I mean, the thing that you're talking about there, Yesuto, of starting with God is love, was I grew up in a very fundamental Baptist church, not necessarily Southern Baptist. And the weird thing with Southern Baptist is I was in that world for a while too. They're like a snowflake. They do their own thing, but they all pay for the same missionaries, essentially, is like the way that they unite. Super non-denom types, and then there's some super legalistic. They tend to be more, Southern Baptist, so they tend to be more legalistic, I would say. And I grew up with that exact same mentality of, judgment and wrath, and I was scared of hell, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. When I was a kid, I was scared of hell. That's how God, spoke to me, but that's because that's all that I really ever heard. I wasn't hearing the piece of that. So I chose to. I know that I got saved at that point, but man, I didn't discover 1 John 4 until I was in college. And when I his love, it just changed my understanding. I was like, wow, I don't think I've ever read in the Bible God describing himself in this way. Like, it is my characteristic, like fundamentally. And then everything started clicking in, like 1 Corinthians 13, of how that's a mirror image of that, and all stuff where it's like, wow, that's where you start. It's not, and I like how you said this too, with Dianna not saying, oh, he's love, but also he knew when to correct, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Will correct their child. Spare the rod, that. So that correction is so important when it comes with direction of saying, this is what you did wrong. This is what you should do in order to live a better life, the way that I created it.
Yeah.
I don't know, like that hits me.
I'm glad.
Dianna, I mean, like your testimony is amazing. I'm curious, when you come into, like, you guys get together. I like the idea. We're just hanging out. I am so on the train. I don't know. Maybe I'm done with this. Chris, you've been here. I haven't been here. Maybe you've been here. I don't know. kids dating when they start getting into that world. Because my idea that I'm going to hold to until I get there, I guess, is this idea of you date for friendship, right? Like to get married to somebody, you date for friendship in the sense of I need to figure out if this person's my best friend or not, and I don't do that exclusively. I exclusively, but if I'm hanging out with somebody more than other people, it's because I'm wanting to know who they are, not just with me, but around other people too. When we're in a group, and so I need to know if like we're meshing, and then get engaged. That's when I actually say, okay, now let's go on a date. Like let's actually like the actual date of being alone, like somewhere by ourselves, because we get married at that point. But I think for dating, it's more of like a friendship kind of. I don't know. That's my thought. What do you think?
Yeah, that's interesting. No, what do you think, Chris?
Yeah, what do you think, Chris?
We're gonna have a round.
Yeah, the conversation with my kids around this, and I always start it with, I know what a boy thinks because I was a 17-year-old boy.
Yeah.
I mean, like I am no like icon of spiritual maturity now, but I'm a lot more mature than I was when I was 20 or 15. But the way I talk about it, so if you talk about marriage is a covenant, right? I actually said this Saturday in a teaching at our church. The way you stay married is you decide divorce is not an option. And just because you're not divorced doesn't mean you're married in spirit or in heart.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's a covenant. What's a covenant? Covenant's forever. And the covenant only matters when you feel like giving up. Till death do us part, in Richard 4, traditional vows. But anyway, if you look at biblical examples of marriage, it's covenantal. Yeah. And what is it? It is when my daughter thinks she likes a guy, or there's marriage on the table. My daughter's 18. So we haven't talked about marriage per se, but the romantic relationships. And you say, well, what is marriage? It is when, if you are the priest of your heart, if we're temples of the Holy Spirit, the temple in your heart needs a priest. That priest is you. And when a young woman is going to go into the priesthood of a man she's going to marry, what is the father? What am I saying? It's saying, I feel okay that you are the priest of your own temple, and that like a marriage is an exchange of priesthood. A woman comes out from under the priesthood of her father into the priesthood of her husband. And that husband is the priest of his family, of his heart first, of his family, of his kids. This is a generational faith. And so when you look at today's world, and you have 13 and 14 and 15-year-old kids saying, this has happened in our scene, someone crying and bawling their eyes out because I just want a girlfriend. I just want a boyfriend. Right. Bro, you are taking the world's influence on you that tells you you are ready for romance. You are ready to come out of Song of Solomon. Do not awaken. Yeah. Is it passion? Yeah. Do not awaken. There is no reason whatsoever. Yeah. For a teenage, especially a boy, to be thinking about romance until he is actively walking with the Holy Spirit daily to learn how to be the priest of his own temple. And any beautiful female or non-beautiful female is a distraction to that. Right. Like if you have your eyes on the Lord, the four living creatures in the book of Revelation, have eyes within and without, staring at the throne. I think it's because no matter their position, no matter where they were around the throne, they could not look away.
Yeah. Wow.
From the Lamb.
Okay.
And so setting our gaze on the one, setting our gaze on the Lamb, who the Passover Lamb who took away the sins of the world.
Yeah.
Is the point. And when you're a teenager, putting anything into that distraction zone is bad news.
Yeah.
Long term, it's bad news. And so to me, it's like, well, dating, then what is dating? Are you ready to get married?
Yeah.
I just think it's a completely in the world's concept of dating, meaning you're alone together in a movie theater or going on a date. And, it's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
And so I think there's just something, and I guess it relates to discipleship, right? And this would relate to Casey. You learn how to be friends. It's like you're not learning how to be romantic. You're learning how to be. But I would be staunchly against it until, and this would be case by case, kid by kid, but my bet, I know no male.
Yeah.
I know zero males in the history of the world. I know zero males that had this figured out before they were 23.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so just the concept of you're going to spend a lot of hours and hours a day with some person. And I know zero people, by the way, and you guys might be the proof, and Casey might be the proof. I know zero people that the boy or girl that they were together with when they were 16 and 17, they're still with and serving Jesus. I mean, it's just it would be, I'm sure there's some out there, but it's anomaly. And so just setting your gaze, your time, your resources, your attention to the Lord. And that's not like you're like, church kid, total church kid. It's and be in groups of 5 and 8 and 10 people of the opposite sex and doing stuff and pursuing the Lord together. But like romance before the age of 21, tragic. Discuss.
Well, we'll get into that another time, Chris, because that could be like, hey, Mary, it's Mary and Joseph, right? And so we can get
I know,
maturity and all that stuff. But I mean, that maturity of being able to follow the Lord, and Mary's song proves that for her as well. That word so well, and the testimony, she her so well. It flowed from her. And so there's just some really cool things there.
Maybe it's because Joseph had memorized the Torah by age 13. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
There.
It's so cool. Right?
Yeah.
I want to get back to you guys real quick with this question. I mean, you guys started your company a lot with this idea of, man, marriage has its things, and one of the finances that can cause problems, and you are not alone with that discovery. And that's one of the best ways to solve a problem. And I'm curious, when you guys tell us about that a little bit. How did the problem start, and when did it click? Hey, we need to make a solution.
Yeah. Well, actually, let me tie it to Chris, what you were describing there, because I think there's this when we went through premarital counseling, right? I think we were obviously excited, we felt ready, and we got engaged at 24. And so we were like, we just crossed your threshold, the 23. But I think what's interesting is after getting married and after we were going through some of these problems, we read a book called Marriage by Paul David Tripp, who's a great Christian counselor and author. And he talks about how when people get married, you're at this point, often young, where you just feel like you're going to conquer the world together. You're in love, like, you know that this is the person you want to be with, like, why would there be any problems, right? You found the right person. And I think, so to the point, I think that as we mature, we start to realize that we are imperfect, or we should realize that, and also that our partner is imperfect too, right? And what the book really talks a lot about is, even as Christians, we're still sinners married to another sinner. And that's going to be true our whole marriage. And so there's always going to be problems that are going to come up. And so I think what's difficult is that talking about money is very taboo in our culture. And so a lot of people don't even talk about money during that engaged phase, like until they're like right on the edge of marriage, or some people not even till after they're married. And so when you get married and now you're joining your life fully with someone else, then the finances now have to play a role. And then people don't have a way to talk about it, or they haven't practiced, or they don't know what to even work through together other than how do we budget for this month. And lo and behold, what people have found is a lot of financial questions are not objective, but are actually subjective and are actually emotional. It's how many vacations do we go on a year? Well, what can we afford? But also, how much do we want to set aside for our future? Is it 20%? Is it 15%? Is it 25%? You'll hear different things from different people. Where are you living? How much can you afford to pay on rent? Should you buy a house? And these questions are actually not necessarily one objective answer, but you'll read a bunch of stuff online and then you'll argue about it. And then someone spends too much on groceries, or someone bought something that they didn't tell the other person until later. And then now there's a fight. And so sadly, fighting about money is the number one topic that couples fight about. And it is what I've read is the number 2 cause of divorce after infidelity, unfortunately, which is still too common in our culture. So people get divorced over money, people fight about money. And what we have found is really there isn't enough of a framework for talking about money with your partner and trying to figure out how to have a better system for managing money with your partner. So for us, we did go through premarital counseling. We did have a conversation with our pastor about money, kind of at a high level, the importance of sitting down and talking about what we value and ensuring the way we spend money reflects those values, spend and save money. But then it fell apart when we quit our jobs and went to grad school. And we were both in grad school. And that's where it was like, we no longer had a stable income. We were in this rocky period. And all of a sudden, all the differences in how we viewed money rose to the surface and just became like the center of our marriage in a really unhealthy way. And so we were fighting about money all the time. So we tried to sit down, put a spreadsheet together, and really figure out how are we going to hammer this out. And so we're both spreadsheet people, consultants. So we're like, okay, at least we're smart enough to figure that out. So we got somewhere, and then, we stopped fighting for like 6 months, and then we started fighting again because then we hit another issue. And so it wasn't enough. So we actually did go back and we got couples counseling. We had been married about 2.5 years, I think, at this point. So we got couples counseling, and that was so helpful. It was a lot of like, listen to your partner, talk about the emotions behind what's going on with this fight about money. Share a bit about your upbringing and how you talked about money in your house, or how your parents modeled spending or saving to you, and how is that playing a role in the conversation you two are having right now. And having that space and that guidance was so helpful. And so fast forward 2.5 years, as we were both working our full-time jobs, we're still tinkering on the side with like, there's got to be some better way to help people manage money. We were thinking, helping people set better goals, helping people think through their money profile. But it just clicked for us finally about 6 months ago. It really comes down to that idea of what we experienced in marriage counseling, which is, can we help couples address these money topics together in a proactive way, in a safe environment? And honestly, it would be great if everyone could do that with a pastor or with a counselor. But to be honest, sometimes that is prohibitively expensive for people. And sometimes people just don't quite feel ready, right? There's a lot of hesitancy still for some people to go out and say, my marriage is in trouble, so I need to get counseling. And honestly, I don't think that's how people should see it, but a lot of people do see it that way. So what we're building is an app that actually uses an AI coach to help couples have these conversations together. And I know that's very like, very scary to some people. Like, you're going to trust AI to do that. But honestly, I think like as we are seeing the capabilities of these models, it's true that if we can guide the AI in our environment, in the company that we're building, we can guide it. We can give it direction on what kinds of answers to give people. We can give it guidelines on what to say and what not to say. And then from there, it does generate things in a real conversational way. But there are ways to add guidelines and add limits and to make it much safer and much more incorporating the sort of Christian principles truly around marriage and around communication and around finances that we believe couples should be having. So that's what we're building. That's the genesis of it. Yeah. I don't know if there's anything
I'll just add something super quickly, which is, I think in a lot of this is like clear in hindsight, I think, but
yeah.
One other thing that happened is during business school, we went on this retreat that's focused on like God and generosity, basically, through an organization called Generous Giving. And of course, like Yesuto said, like business school is not the time. I was like, oh, this is the time to be very generous. I was like, no, like we have student debt and everything. This is not when I thought about generosity, but it all came from the position of like, God is like a wildly generous God. And it's more about like first believing that. And then like each person has their own journey with generosity, but do you first recognize God is very generous to you? And when we went through that retreat, the interesting thing is I remember now and like looking back on the last few years, one of the things I also realized was missing is I was like, man, like no couple, I rarely ever heard a couple be like, man, when we talk about money, it just like gets us so pumped up. Like we are just so excited for how we're going to use it. Like we have these visions. Like I feel like a lot of times it's like the best conversations people have are like, okay, that wasn't too bad. And I'm like, that's such a miss for me of like, that's so different than how we talk about other parts of our life. We're like, oh, God equipped you in your job. God gave you this relationship. God, like there are all these other parts where I feel like people see that energy and that joy of like, how cool. Like this is something that like can be a source of joy. And I just feel like with money, it's like that one, like, I don't know, like offshoot awkward thing that they're like, oh, let's just like, and then the money part, like, just don't mess that up. And
Right.
that's such a like short selling to me of the God's vision for it, where God, like, I think there's a reason that God talks about like, you can't worship God and money. And I think the inability to fully get it to something that we believe is something that can be like joyful, empowering, like something that brings people close together, something that does great work in the world. I feel like a lot of people don't think they're worshiping money or idolizing money, but I think like a lot of times there's like a fear of it. There's there's just like still not that whole like sense of like, how do you just manage money in a way that like is honoring God, bringing joy. Like, so anyways, the last thing I'll say is I feel like it was only that generosity conversation that I felt like I was like, that was a really fun conversation about money. And so many conversations are not even like, they just feel stressful or pressure filled or like, like painful to deal with. And that just doesn't feel like it's redeeming it in a way that allows us to really say like, we're not worshiping money, we're really worshiping God. And if we're going to worship God, when we talk about money, it's going to feel the same.
You're talking, I like the worshiping God or worshiping money. And within that vein, like, I mean, if you're spending a lot of time creating a business, a company that's helping people do things with their money, redeeming. I like that. I like that phrase, redeeming that conversation. That's important. I love how you're saying that, because it should be redeemed blamed of what we think about with money, because the love of money is not money itself.
Yeah.
And good steward is promoted so heavily in the Bible. And you're talking about worshiping. How does this help you? What have you guys discovered about how focusing on these things in a biblical way helps you Monday through Saturday commit these things to the Lord? And like, what has that journey been like for you? And has there been any struggles with that, or what have you found that helps you to worship every day like this?
Wow. To be honest with you, there's nothing better than daily prayer. So I really think like that has not been a practice my whole Christian walk, but just in the last like year and a half has when I've really committed to daily prayer. And that just reorients me, every day, Monday through Saturday, to like, okay, I'm walking into today, trying to honor God with how I approach the situations that I'm getting into. And I think the second thing, especially when talking about money in particular and stewardship, it really is a mindset shift that I think like ongoing conversations. And so for us, actually, one thing we didn't bring up was there's this organization called Generous Giving. That's a Christian nonprofit, and they host these retreats called A Journey of Generosity. And you did mention
I did mention
that. You did mention this. And so going through those retreats, those Journey of Generosity, I think like the more we've talked to other Christians who also are on that journey of trying to figure out how to have a generous mindset, I think that has been helpful for me too, right? So it kind of gets into that idea of like my one-on-one relationship with God, but then also ensuring I'm having relationships with other Christians who are also willing to discuss these things is a good way to kind of remind me on a week in, week out kind of basis to really have that mindset.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like nothing's been harder than being an entrepreneur. Not for the reason I think people expect. I think a lot of times people are like, yeah, it's long hours or something, which we can talk about later. But I think more so, and I think I touched on this a little bit in the last conversation, just the temptation to like merge what you think is going to like honor God, worship God with like your own desire just feels like sometimes like there's a healthiness of like, yeah, like God's puts like passions in our hearts and skill sets and things like that too. And it's kind of, I can't think of like was it Icarus who like flew too close to the sun, of like, sometimes the closer those are, the easier it is to start to like lose sight of like, is it really for God or is it really for you? So I think being an entrepreneur, like both simultaneously, like Monday through Saturday, it's like the daily bread prayer feels really the daily bread part of the Lord's Prayer is like more and more real of like, oh, I'm not like praying for my daily bread, but then I know my W-2 salary is going to come no matter what. It's like that sense of like, oh, more dependence. But I just think I've been really like fixated more recently on the word content. And I think that that's something where I'm trying to just pay more attention to like, whether things like, whether I'm productive or not, am I content and joyful with my day? Whether like I get to do a lot of fun things, like things I love doing, like brainstorming, or I'm doing a lot of like painful tax stuff, like whatever it is, am I content? Because I think I've noticed sometimes that I think the degree that my day depends on like how well I do, or just like how happy I am, like it starts to illuminate to me, like I'm probably not worshiping fully and like even just the day-to-day things if like I can feel so like if I'm not productive in a day, I just feel so like mad at me, like, oh, why wasn't I more productive today? So that's just something I've been thinking a lot about, like if I really believe my only job's calling me to, even like that could mean the business could work, it can mean the business could not work. And if I'm content that like all I have to do is follow the way that God's calling and do the best of my ability, then I should be able to be content. And if I'm not, I'm probably making it more about me, or like attaching myself too much to like the outcomes. So yeah, and this is something I've been like meditating on a lot of, like, that's why I think Paul could be content in like all things, not because he, it's not like a call to be like miserable. Like he was in prison, right? So he's like writing letters from jail. So it's not because he's like, oh yeah, this is like the time. But it's like, I truly think like the most incredible leaders can feel like the same, or not the same, but like have that same faithfulness, like whether they are entrusted with empires or they are in jail, they'd be like, yeah, I know where my worth is, and that can't be taken. Yeah. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit off topic, but it's hard. I think the Monday through Saturday, the slowness of the morning is the most intentional like time I have. And if I can get that, like start my day, I think you said this about daily prayer, if I start my day remembering God, like it just helps to maybe be a little more attuned to the Spirit throughout the day. That's hard. I feel like all of a sudden I blink sometimes the 10 hours have gone by and I'm like, well, I tried. I really tried, but
Yeah. No, that's awesome. There's like so many things in there that I could just dig into for hours, and we will a little bit when we get into the round table here, and we just start talking about money and Christian entrepreneurship and all that. But I'm gonna stop myself from getting into that too quickly. When you guys are talking to other people, you said you're pastoring at your local. I just want to get on that for a second. What is that like? Reason like this, where it's constant running around trying to move the ball downfield in many different areas.
Yeah, right.
Well, how do you guys pause, make time for that, disciple people? What is that world like for you?
yeah, I'll kick this one off. I think a couple of things we've been learning a lot. I think the power of a true Sabbath once a week, one day fully off of work. It's not because we got everything done, but just purely to remember, like, it's not about getting stuff done. So I think holding on to that, I'm trying to be really good about getting my sleep every night and just being like, yeah, you have to rest. You have to take care of yourself to like show up well. I think the most interesting part is we both have always, I think one of the things we bond over is just like a love of like community. So we always like, we love hosting dinners. We love getting coffee with people, probably pack our schedules too much with social things. But I think there's a fully focused, like a groundedness when you're in the presence of other people that reminds you what's really, at least reminds me what's really important at the end of the day. So yes, like while we're trying to push the ball forward on many fronts, like when I sit down for coffee with someone who's like new to our church, or we're like staying late after small group because someone has going on with something in their life, like while it's tempting to have a million things running through our head, I feel like there's just something so gravitating of like, when you're in the presence of another person, it just helps me like be like, this is what really, really matters at the end of the day. And one book that we're reading through is Eugene Peterson's book on pastoring, and just kind of gets an idea of like, yes, like the organization of the church is good to grow. Like you do have to like manage these processes or these different things, but at the end of the day, like if you ask most people what what was the most memorable experience they had with a pastor or someone in like a church role, it's most of the time, and Chris is probably what you're getting to a lot with your discipleship, is the people who probably sat the most with them and just like heard their life, or with them, showed up when they needed them. So that's a thing that I think I've been really trying to remember, of like, as we're trying to create more like structure to our church and hopefully invite more people to be a part of it, like the most important thing is just our presence. And it's hard to it's hard to remember, but yeah, just anytime I'm in front of somebody that's so clear, and when I'm not in front of someone, I'm from my computer. It's easy to get caught up in like the multitude of things that we think are going to like grow the business or grow the church. But the last thing I'll say is there's a book I'm reading right now. It's about money, but it's a great concept in general. It's called Die with Zero. And it just reminds you the idea of like your life is the accumulation of the experiences you have over this time. It's not, and it's not even like the numbers in your bank account, the accolades you walk away with. It's just like the true accumulation of every experience you've had in your life. And that's helping challenge me of like, man, like if I believe that, then I won't miss the goodness of like just sitting down with someone, because I'm building for like a 20-year future that may or may not even happen.
Yeah. And I'll just briefly add, I think, echoing a lot of what Dianna said, I actually find like that one-on-one pastoring very refreshing. I think just in this period of chaos, like just slowing down, being with one person, and just like being able to pour into someone in that way. And I think, again, similar to what Dianna said, it's like I have really needed to always remind myself, as much as I want to have a huge impact through my life and through my ministry and through my work, like impact is always about impacting one person at a time, right? And like, hopefully when we build systems at scale, a bunch of individuals are being impacted by that, but it's always individuals, right? And so the more I think that I get the opportunity to just sit down one-on-one with people, the more I'm just reminded, like, this is why we're doing anything we're doing, is to help individuals. And so even if the business fails, I'll know that I sat with individuals and helped walk them through what they were going through. Actually, I will throw this question over to Chris too, because I know, Chris, it sounds like you decided to spend a lot of your time in this one-on-one kind of discipleship. What was the rationale for you there?
So I grew up in the church. Both my grandfathers were ministers, Wesleyan ministers, and my father was never a head pastor, but was on staff, a worship pastor in youth. And I think what I noticed in my early 20s, when I was using, say, my drumming gift in the church, and it just, and so you're like, and being on staff at a couple churches, just over time, it feels like in general, the system, if I could call, I'm not deconstructed at all. My heart's very warm to the church, but like, I think evangelical Christianity in general feels like it's not making disciples.
Yeah.
Or the thing we've built, and Casey will have a lot to say about this. Well, it's like the opposite of 7-day worship, right? It's like we worship from 10 to noon on Sundays.
Yeah.
And everything, all staff members on a church are basically focused. Hey, you went dark. Are basically focused on this one event, like a 60 to 120 minute event, and it's like, well, that isn't like bad from like if this is our ministry or if this is how we're going to reach the culture, but like it fails at developing relationships,
right?
And so is it perhaps because faith is supposed to be different? Faith isn't supposed to be an event, and I don't think anyone working in a church would say it is. But like the system of church, the system of 10 to noon Sundays is so. It's such the thing that if you just step backwards and go, how could you actually make disciples? What does it take to actually break out of that? And it's not saying you're not going to do that and you're just going to do home church the rest of your life, but like, how do you? And my dad said it in a way, I forget how he said it. He said it's not hard but messy, or it's not simple but difficult. But like it's just like when you're in each other's life, and hey, I need someone has to pick up my kids because I got to work late, and like, what's the recurring place that you meet with others who are in the faith to like share a meal and actually have a conversation about struggles, or I'm going to pray for you outside of that Sunday morning thing. And it really is, it's one-on-one. And I think it's slow. It's the long-term, maybe, who's the dude that wrote the message?
Eugene Peterson.
Eugene Peterson, or maybe he did, but the concept of, what is it? Long walk in one direction, or like, it's like this, we're trying to be quick and sound bites on Instagram, but really like discipleship is like, Jesus hanging out with 12 dudes around a campfire and wondering where their next meal is going to come from, and walking for 4 hours to the next city. It's just like this slow burn of, and it's easy in our world today to be impatient with that, I think. Or to build your life where you have time and margin to like, someone calls you up and say, hey, can you have lunch today? And you're like, yeah, sure. We're so strapped to a schedule and so strapped to performance metrics, and just our lives are built around full schedules, and it's really hard. Not hard. What's the word? It's different than say when there wasn't electricity. Right. Or there wasn't always on and always connected, and ROI and Gary Vaynerchuk, hashtag Russell Wilson, hashtag no sleep. I mean, what a dumb hashtag is that? Like, it's like, what? what have we given up in exchange for hustle culture?
Yeah.
And you would know this being in Silicon Valley.
Oh, yeah.
What's the hustle culture affects Christianity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it affects his churches, especially churches over the size of 400 people.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think that's not necessarily bad, and someone could be called to that, but I don't think it's a good strategy and plan for making disciples, going to all world and making disciples. And it's one-on-one, it's messy,
Yeah.
it's smaller.
Yeah.
I think it's smaller.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'll just react really quickly, and I have so many thoughts, but I'll keep it short for Casey's sake. But someone said once, there's something that basically said relationships are intrinsically like not efficient and not productive,
Mhm.
and that is like the beauty of it. And until you internalize that, like you will always miss real relationships. And I feel like that was
Yeah.
so good of like, yeah. So it's kind of going to what you're saying, Chris, of like relationships are that long walk. It's not anything to do with efficiency or productivity. And I also have so many thoughts on like church, church part too, but I'll save them for now.
Well, if you have kids, you were talking about not having kids yet, maybe you will someday, but like just try to apply everything that Silicon Valley says is valuable to raising a child. Okay, here, kid, you're having a meeting with your 3-year-old toddler.
Right.
Here's the Gantt chart. Here's the 3-year forecast. Here's your KPIs, kid.
Yeah.
And they're just like, can we play Thomas the Train?
Right.
it's completely relational, and they don't care what you're thinking about. They don't care. They don't know how to log in to their whatever to their Slack channel. You're sending your toddler Slack messages, and they just want to see you.
Mm-hmm.
And my son would do this thing, and it's so beautiful. I'd come home from a long day at work, and I'm gassed. I'm tired. Could fall asleep in 2 minutes if I laid on the couch. And I come to the door, and I'm sitting there kind of trying to gather my thoughts. And he would grab my hand, and he would say, "Come." And he'd try to pull me into his bedroom to play marbles or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you just have to let it all go and be completely present. With this kid that just wants to play with his father.
I love that. Wow.
And I think that's what discipleship is. Yeah. You're letting it all go, letting all the agenda, and just you're completely present with the person across the table from you that you're sharing wine and bread with. And it's this moment right now, and we might not get anywhere tonight, but that's okay. Tell me what's going on with you. Tell me what are your hopes and dreams? What's not going great? What happened today that was so cool? And that falls through the cracks on Sunday morning, I think. And it's not because that's the goal. It's just because that's the system that's not allowed, or that it just can't happen.
As a part of our we have to all follow up, because I think as part of my like pastoral internship program this year, I'm writing like a paper on how if we're the church is missing the mark in a lot of ways, like creating disciples. Like, what about the structures or there's probably more connected to, like, to your point, Chris, like, it's not that these things are bad things. It's more of just like when they become the thing itself and you miss the end goal, which is discipleship. How like we have to start to question, like, are some of these like more helpful, or can we rethink some of these as well to create more space for those types of things? So I think you're spot on in a lot of ways. Hopefully we have like 8 more hours on this call to go through it.
I'm good. I mean, that's the whole point of this, right? Is to do that, and I don't know. I mean, when it comes to the church, I think the church needs another reformation a bit, in the sense that the first Reformation happened when the church, I think I heard Wesley Huff talk about this. He said it was gospel and discipleship and all of those core things were like this beautiful tree. And for the years with the Catholic Church in particular, with church and state, it had become mossy, and there was all this overgrown to that tree essentially. And the point of the Reformation was to cut away all that moss and get back at that beautiful tree and see the picture clearly again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that we have kind of done the same thing a little bit.
Yeah.
To our systems and the ways that we've processed it. And they're not necessarily bad things that I'm going to rail against, but the tree, you know, where's that gospel when I'm focused on the minors being a major, focused on making sure my family gets to church on Sunday and that they have childcare versus hanging out with somebody at my home after church and asking them that for you this week, and you know, what have you been praying about, and how's God moving? Here's how He is in my. We don't do that beautiful relationship building anymore. Our life groups, it's typically not the format to do it there. It's very systemized and churchy, where the pastor gives like, here's a handout for you all to go through, and you go through the handout, ask the questions the pastor wrote down, and instead of you guys pastoring each other in that moment and praying together. I know my wife had this beautiful moment when she went to a life group, and they were going to go through a topic with each other, and she just let them know something that was going on in her life, and they just stopped everything, and they just prayed with her right then and there. And she, I've never encountered that before. You know, that's unbelievable. Supposed to be, and it just clicked for her. Of that's what church is, you know, and I want to be like that with people. And now she's like out. She just introduces me to people from Starbucks that she meets and taps on the shoulder and says, "Hey, God told me to pray for you," you know, and now I'm like in conversation. It's like, you know, weeks later, because my wife's just following the Lord in the moment, and started for her, you know, and I've got a lot to say on that stuff too. And, you know, we're going to have many topics about that, because the whole point of this really is I think the leadership needs to be in these conversations, asking them, what does it mean to actually lead the church? What is my job? Is my job to make Sunday happen? Or do I have to make Sunday happen because that's a thing? But I really want to kind of start changing my church's mentality to understanding that that's not church, that's a celebration, happy moment where we all come together and celebrate what happened Monday through Saturday. Monday through Saturday as a church family, and see how we can perform that in our space. And I love the small churches for doing that too. You know, I've done so many church plants. You guys are in a great spot to make that happen. You guys with that. Now, I want to just ask one last question for you two as we close this interview kind of point, getting to know you, hearing your story, and we move into more discussion. But what would you say, speaking of discipleship, speaking of doing life together, you have a new person founding something for the first time, kind of walking in the footsteps of what you guys have gone through. What do you want to tell them as an encouragement? Here's what you can expect. I'd like to pray this over you, bless you with this.
I'll throw out two things then. I'll let you jump in. I would say two things. I'd say first, it is an amazing journey. I would not trade it for the world. I think it's the space. It's like the wilderness, really. It's like where faith really like starts to really like ripen in a beautiful way, but it's so hard, and you cannot do it alone. I have been really fortunate that I've gotten to find both like a female founders group and like a just general founders group of Christians, and just like every other week, to your point, Chris, it's like very anti-Silicon Valley in the sense of like, we just got on a call and don't have an agenda. And it's like, how are you? What's going on? And so I think the first few times I went to those, I was like, how do I get what I want out of it? How do I get my customers or something? And then I'm like, oh, I just can't wait to go see my friends. You know, I just can't wait to check in on them. And so first, it's an amazing journey, but you cannot do it alone, not just because it's hard, but I think you'll miss some of the best parts of the journey of like the shaping. An example I gave is someone from that group, like we're doing a 40-day prayer together. Like, and just like, we just text each other every day. And I'm just like, that's the special part. Like, yes, like I used to think it was, these things got me to the success of the business. And now I'm flipping it of like, being in this business is still getting me back to the same good thing of like the people that we come back to.
Yeah.
So first, it's so hard. It's so, no one will sugarcoat it, but doing in community is actually way better than I could imagine.
Yeah.
I'm about to forget the second thing. Oh, yeah. Okay, I just remembered. Someone said this to us once, and it's just like the soundtrack in my head that has saved me so many times. God is not in a rush. And I think that that's so hard when you're trying to build something, but to remember that the God of the infinite like world and universe and everything is always on time, and he's not normally early on your books. Sometimes he is, but most of the time he'll be right on time. And he's not in a rush. So when you feel like day in, day out, you're behind, just remember God is not in a rush and God is not late. So those are the two things for me.
Those are great. And I think for me, I would say, just remember that God does not need you to be successful for his kingdom to keep growing. Right. And I think that's where, as a perfectionist by heart, by nature, I think I would come into these projects and to a new business is like, wow, I need to get this done. I need to do it well so that other people can come to know God better. And I think it's a good heart to have of like, I want to do something redemptive, but the pressure I put on myself and even the importance I put on myself is completely misplaced, right? Where it should all be on God. And there was a conference we were at this weekend where there was a speaker who's a pastor, and he was sharing how he was saying, you know, he likes to make homemade waffles from scratch for his kids, and he has toddlers. And he said, sometimes the toddlers come and they say, can I help? And then he knows it's going to be harder. It's going to be messier. It's going to be probably not as good of a product if he lets them help. But he decides, you know, he's a father. He wants to have them help. He enjoys it. He enjoys their company. And he cleans up after them. He tidies it up. So there's a great waffle at the end. And then he even said, you know, but sometimes what if his toddler says the night before, I'm going to come help. I really want to help in the morning. And then the toddler decides to sleep in, right? And then he's like, okay, well, I also make the waffles. And he says, and in the morning at the end, he's going to put the waffles on the table, and he's not going to shame the toddler for not showing up. You know, he's like, you know, he made the waffles. And the point here is that we are the toddler and God is making the waffles all around us. He lets us help, but it's really not about us doing it. And I think that pressure it's helpful to take that pressure off, that like, God can help people redeem their relationship with money without me and Dianna, without Opto AI, but he wants to invite us to be a part of that with him. And I think for any Christian entrepreneur, it's just so helpful to remember, it's okay if you fail. It's okay if you're not perfect. It's okay if you get burnt out. Like, God can keep the mission going even without you, or even with your imperfections. So take the pressure off. Try to find the joy in it, the joy of walking alongside God in what he's building, that he's just letting you be a part of.
Love it. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your story. Really appreciate all of that. Like I said, you know, even before we got on here, you know, this is us archiving stuff so that people can just, they can relate and they can be encouraged and they can find community with people who are and going through the things that they're going through. And so I'm going to go ahead and transition us into the next segment here as we get into the roundtable discussion around Christians, finances, business, and all that kind of stuff. And so as I do that, one of the things that that we're trying to accomplish over this next year is to let people know a little bit more about something my wife and I have been really passionate about over the years, which is getting the church kind of reunited together. I loved how Yesuto, you were talking about denomination type thing, you know, and all that. You get this from me at all. I haven't really talked about it, but I'm pretty anti-denomination. I understand it.
Right.
But the premise of dividing the church up because we can't deal with each other with certain topics shows the world a divided Christ, and I just can't stand that. And so I'd much rather the world see a unified Christ through a unified church. And so we can have the things like that take us more collectively together that we rally around the ideas of, but to cross over, to talk to each other and still call each other brothers and sisters in Christ. That's the goal, really. And be the way that God has Autumn and I, my wife, to kind of go down that path. And we've been starting on the local worship project. Chris and talking for a while about trying to figure out how to pilot this idea. But ultimately, what this is, we don't believe that worship music was meant to be outsourced. We don't meant to be marketed to and shaped through non-Christian financial interests.
Right.
And that next week, actually, we're going to talk a lot about the music industry itself. And so the local worship project exists to help churches and local artists write and release their own songs freely with no commercial licenses and copyright laws. So you have non-commercial or commercialized copyright laws. These would be the non-commercial copyright laws. And so fight against that nonstop pull of algorithms and marketing intermediaries shaping the outcome of what we see in church every single week. And so if there's anybody out there that you guys know, or if anybody watches this and you guys want to know more about what this looks like, how we can build this slowly, openly, and faithfully together, just myself at caseyklocek@gmail.com. I think I got that in the description if you guys are going to look for this. But just put LWP in the title of that email if you're interested in that. And I'd love to talk to you more about it. But let's go ahead and hop into this next portion here of what we're going to talk through. I think I had somebody who might jump in this conversation a little bit later. But for now, let's go ahead and just start talking about the realities of building. And so we're going to talk about where faith usually gets tested. And I'm going to start it out with hopefully a hot one. When does entrepreneurship become idolatry? I think this has a little bit to do with what we were talking about with time and how we spend it, who is at the focus of everything. But let me just throw that, hopefully, a bit of a bombshell out there and see how we recover that. When does entrepreneurship become idolatry?
Perfect.
That's perfect.
And while you're doing this, we're going to switch over computers because I was just lagging a good amount too. So
I think it'll just take 10 seconds. So if you don't mind,
I'll hop you
Casey,
right back in. Yep.
Perfect. We'll do that right now.
Chris, it's over to you, man.
Well, it probably happens if you're saying the hypothetical, when does entrepreneurship become an idol? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. What are the tendencies? What are the things that maybe make an entrepreneur get into that? All of a sudden you start focusing on.
Well, I think, and I would say that's not just entrepreneurship, but pursuing a goal or a dream or whatever. It probably happens a lot sooner than you think. You know, like it's like you like if you were going to wake up one day, or the Lord in his mercy came to you and pointed this out, and you're like, oh, it's an idol. It wasn't like, it didn't happen like last night. It's a warning, like you've been on this road of drifting for whatever, and then suddenly something happens to, like, hello McFly, snap you out of it, out of the the illusion. Like, and any, like, we know this, right? Anything, an idol didn't start out as necessarily bad.
Right.
Like it was a good idea. I mean, your marriage can become an idol. Your kids are a blessing from the Lord. So it's like, Casey, it comes back to this, right? The heart posture. Even 10 a.m. Sunday church, what started as a good thing or as good intentions slowly grows until, whoa, it's consuming you. And at first it's consuming you and you didn't even know it. And then you get faced with some sort of scenario, and your spouse is blowing up at you, or like you actually get fired, or you took some crazy financial risk. Right. And you're like, whoa, this thing, I'm dropping all common sense and operating completely, what's the word? I mean, entrepreneurs take risks, but like these crazy situations, you made a bad decision, and anyone on the other side be like, dude, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
And you make some tragic decision, and now your wife's left you, or your kids hate you, or you found yourself in sexual sin or something, and that's the wake up call, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
But the idols don't start as bad things. They start as, and it's if Satan is the father of lies, it's taking something, twisting it just enough till you start believing this lie or this non-truth that you're giving yourself, and then you just wake up one day and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not good.
As you were talking, I was kind of thinking about like the picture that came to mind. It's almost like a garden, the idol of entrepreneurship are like the weeds. Like they're gonna keep growing. Like it's gonna be there probably from the start, and it's gonna keep coming back. And it's your job as you tend this garden to like continually root it out. Because to your point, Chris, I think about like our startup idea. The moment we had the idea, like it was simultaneously, I would say, both good intentions and also mix in there is like my own ego of like, heck yeah, I want to have an amazing, successful business, right? And so yeah, it's just actually something that I feel like even I take what you say and go even a step further of like, it's probably there at the start, and it's your job to just constantly just be aware of it and to pray about it and keep accountability. It's not, and I don't say that to say it's our job to be these like, perfect people who just never have a bad intention. But I think it's actually that act of like growing with God and constantly wrestling with God of like, how do I continually like stay to the Spirit? Casey, to your point, like your wife, like, am I willing to like just listen to how the Spirit's guiding us in making business decisions that shows me I'm not idolizing it? And do I like let go of that kind of control? So.
Oh, that's so good. I mean, it's something that my wife and I have been talking about a lot is how do we do this together? Because it was kind of my brainchild at the beginning. And the idea of doing something together when not both of you have the same skill sets or callings or whatever, unifying around that is a big challenge. And Chris, to your point about children and that's not losing time with them. I think one of the things that I read somewhere, eye contact, that's a thing for me. Eye contact with my baby when he's on the floor is one of the most healthy for that kid's growth and development. And when I'm not giving him eye contact, that child is being neglected in a way that his brain can't recover from those days he loses it. Wow. That's something that when I'm on my computer late at night, grinding, doing the thing, I just like wake up for a second, I look, and there's my kid over there, and he's just staring at me, either in a bouncy seat or something. I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, you and me, kid, like we're just gonna do some eye contact here for a second. And he's just like lights up whenever I look at him in the eyes, and I'm like, wow, okay, let's close this thing down, and spend a little bit of time, and sometimes I don't. But when it comes to idolatry too, somebody told me this once. It takes time to build your idol. Like you you think of the golden calf and Moses, who's up for 40 days or whatever, up with the Lord on Mount Sinai, because he's the only one who went. Everybody else was like too afraid, and so they stayed down on the mountain. And while they're waiting there, they're like, where'd this Moses guy go? He's been gone for a while. Hey, Aaron, can you build us an idol or build us some Elohim, is what they said. And so Aaron says, hey, everybody, give me your earrings, give me your stuff, like give me anything that's gold. And so they melted it down, they smelted it, golden calf, and then they worshipped it. And so that creep of giving your earring, to melt it down, to make something out of it, those are the things that it's just one little step at a time, one little easy step at a time. Well, eventually it gets out of control and you find yourself worshiping something. And there was somebody else who told me that golden calf story too. and I don't know if this is biblically accurate or not. I haven't, you know, really looked into this yet from when I was growing up. But the intention of the children of Israel in that moment was more of, hey, we're not seeing God at the top of the mountain. Aaron, make us God. Like, make us an image of him so that we can worship God. And it ended up becoming something totally was off base and wasn't God, right? And so when them like intending even of like, hey, can you give us an image of God? Or if it was, let's worship another God, the result is still, even if your motives are pure, which was interesting. But when you take your focus and your steps off of following, because again, they were invited up there. They didn't go up. They did the wrong actions, and that heart of, you know, we still want to have our cake and eat it too. And you can't have that. Oh, you can't sacrifice all this stuff and still get the same result. So that's my thought on that. What, Yesuto?
No, I'll piggyback off that. I think that's so powerful. I think, and like you said, whether or not that's people's intentions were in terms of the people of Israel, I think that is very much something a lot of entrepreneurs have. Oh, I'm gonna do this thing and it's gonna honor God. And then they build and slowly God kind of fades away, and now they're building their thing. And it's just like, how do you not lose sight when you have that right intention in the beginning? I think for me, there's just like one example has just been, because I'm working full time still, right? And I'm working part-time on the business, I'm like trying to squeeze my hours in wherever I can. How do I make sure I'm not prioritizing that over my time with God? And I found that sometimes I have been, right? And sometimes, like I said, it's like my 5 to 9 after my 9 to 5. Realistically, I get home, we have dinner, and then I log on and I start working at like 9 p.m. And I'm a night owl, so I'll probably work till like 2 a.m. And then I have my 9 to 5 the next day. So then I'm like, oh man, I need to get like at least 6 hours of sleep, hopefully. And then I can get up, get ready for work, sometimes I cut out my morning prayer so I can have a little bit of sleep so I can get to work, right? And so then I'm like, oh, well, you know, but I'm hustling. I'm trying to get this thing done. I worked an extra hour because this is really not there yet. We got to get this done quickly. And I was just reflecting on Ash Wednesday. Actually, we had an Ash Wednesday service. So I was like, wow, anytime I'm willing to hour at night, such that in the morning I don't have time for even 15 minutes or 30 minutes of prayer and Bible study, like that's me choosing the business over my time with God, right? If I'm going to say working on the business is so much more valuable than just daily devotional, then that's an idol. And so for me, it's like even Dianna was saying, like Chris was saying, it's a constantly pull of like, no, this is going to get for my time with God. And it's always something I need to be in with God on whether I'm building it in the way that he wants me to. Yeah. Definitely resonate with that.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, that creep is important. I think, and we're all different with that too, right? So, I'm curious about this when it comes to, those things and what we deal with as entrepreneurs. We get a lot of talk about the physical or the mental kind of load of things, because I think that's a very Western thing. But what about spiritual? You know, like what does that spiritual warfare look like? Do you guys think that's a thing? And if so, like, I mean, what does that look like? My wife and I have been getting geeky about this, because we're like in Missouri with people who like fight witches on their property when they do spiritual things, and there's people who are trying to curse and hex like what they're doing and stuff, and like it's a very real world for them that they're walking in. And so praying over your family, like protection, that there would be no evil here in the name of the Lord, and that you protect your business for his purposes and things like that. Like there's like, I don't know if it weirds people out, but in other countries it doesn't. You talk to missionaries, that's just not a reality. The spiritual world is something we need to pay attention to. And what we're doing, like I said this last week, we're like the tip of the spear going out there into a world that is very, very corrupt, even with Christian entrepreneurs. I say that in quotes, but also some that have just kind of fallen away with the Silicon business and have used that model instead of saying, what does it look like to let thy kingdom come and that will be done on earth as it is in heaven? And so in that spiritual realm, like, have you guys encountered any spiritual warfare? What does that look like with businesses?
Interesting. Then.
Yeah, organizing it. And so I think like something Chris said earlier, I'm just like, the devil is the prince of lies, I think, or something along those lines. But just the idea that there's constantly this sense of like, I almost feel like it's even sometimes when I'm just going a different direction of just like, even pushing me to like, whether it's focusing on myself or the way I can prosper from the business or grow the business. Like, it's just, I think a lot of times it's just these, sometimes I feel like these senses of a direction or a path the business could go that might be profitable, but are not with what we believe is redemptive for God. I think like sometimes I'm like that. I'm just like get those thoughts out of here, you know? And I feel like that's where I think sometimes it's almost like Jesus saying to Peter, right? Like, get behind me, Satan. It's like, where was Satan? You know, was Satan Peter's ear? Was he in the area somewhere? But I think, you know, at the time Peter was saying, he's like, I forget the exact quote, but it's just like, but I think like for me, a lot of times I'm like looking at these thoughts like, that's just not from God. Like, I need to remember to focus on God. So like, where did that come from? And I think sometimes that might be a form of spiritual warfare. But curious what others think, or if you don't think that's quite like what you would call spiritual warfare either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious what Chris has on that, but I'll answer a little bit here. So like with spiritual warfare, what I've been finding is I know very little of what I thought I knew when it comes to spiritual stuff, and so being open to ask the questions in prayer of like, God, like what's going on? You know, like what do you want me to be ready for? You know, and again, like I said, tip of the spear as entrepreneurs that are Christians. What I mean by that is you're on what we just talked about before of discipleship. If your goal, Dianna and Yesuto, is to individually start impacting lives when it comes to couples and helping get strengthened for the Lord, so that they don't divorce, so they don't bicker, so that they don't break apart, but they become stronger. Why in the world would the enemy not try to stop that from happening?
Right.
You know, and that question really becomes, well, how? And not everything necessarily is like a demonic force that's negative against what you're trying to do. But the awareness of, the enemy's probably not going to want this to succeed. Just systematically or practically in the world to be something that that other people can hold on to. Or, and here's the more insidious part, I've been rereading Screw Tape Letters from C.S. Lewis, and one of the easiest things that you see is let him infiltrate what you're already doing and just curve the bit. So really it comes more to, hey, let the business succeed, but we're just going to hook it in slightly off direction so that it doesn't do exactly what you do. And that's the best way to trap you, because then you think you're successful doing the thing for the Lord and you're really just walking away, and everybody's with you. And so there's many ways that can happen. And so the alertness of just praying, God, would you just help as I abide in you, would you please just abide in me and help me to be aware, give me discernment, give me wisdom as I walk through this, and open eyes to see the things around me. I don't know. What do you think, Chris? I'm spouting out a few different things.
you can gain the whole world yet forfeit your soul.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about, in the end, we will. One of my favorite theological quotes, non-scripture, is A.W. Tozer, and it goes something like, "The most important thing about any person is what comes into their mind when they think about Jesus."
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if we believe scripture is true, that it says every knee will bow and every tongue confess, even if that knee and tongue don't want to, it will. And before at the end, all of us will stand before the King of the universe, and he will go, sheep or goat,
Mm-hmm.
sheep or goat. And people will say, did we not perform miracles in your name?
Right.
Did we not cast out demons in your name? Judas Iscariot was one of these people. Did we not do everything that religion says you're supposed to do? Did we not build business so that we could have lots of money to grow your kingdom? And he will say, apart from me, I never knew you.
Yeah.
I never knew you. Like the son that said, come, play with me. I want to know you. It's about relationship, not religion, not striving, not building things, not doing. So if that's true about the religious things, like the doing miracles or healing the sick, the religious things, how much more for building a business that we sacrifice the knowing. We spent time building, but not knowing. And he's not saying don't build a business. I mean, that's all biblical. I mean, think about Daniel.
Yeah.
Working for a demonic kingdom. A demonic kingdom for 3 different, he was in 3 different governments. Daniel was. And yet he was thrown into the lion's den because he didn't stop praying 3 times a day it was. He had some sort of standard. So if you just look at Daniel as an example, no, you build things, you do things to bless your community, to have things to have finances, to bless others, to grow the kingdom. But also it's about, I think it's the Psalm 127 priorities.
Yeah.
Building it. What is it? Rising early, going late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, because he gives to his beloved sleep. He gives to his beloved rest. And so it's we're building like Daniel with the Lord's. He was even building, he was managing property and assets for a godless kingdom.
Yeah.
By the way, that sheep goat metaphor, he says, apart from me, you workers of lawlessness.
Right.
You are unrighteous. You don't know me. So there's something about prioritizing, like Daniel. This is you were saying, you were saying, when you're staying up late, you forget to pray, or you're sleeping in the morning because. So like it's like designing your life. So okay, what's my priority? Build a killer business that helps people, but also don't be a worker of lawlessness. How do I know the Lord? Which one do I want more?
Right. Yeah.
I want to know the Lord. I want to stay married. I am not going to divorce Dianna. I am going, and not only, I'm not going to, oh, lucky you, I didn't divorce you. No, I want to know her. I want to know, and I'm not going to give up on the knowing Lord, and I'm not going to give up on knowing my spouse and my kids. So if those are the priorities, how I design my life, so that is always, and it might just be a time thing, like time of day. Hey, whoa, I notice I am in the zone with the Lord on my spreadsheets at 2 a.m.
Mhm.
But then I got to
Mhm.
sleep till, so maybe your time with the Lord's got to be at noon. But it's like
Yeah, right.
you're mapping your calendar,
Yeah.
like to go, okay, my time with the Lord doesn't work in the morning because I'm sleeping. It works for me in the morning. But like designing your life so that this is the non-negotiable on my calendar that participates well with the non-negotiable on my entrepreneur brain, that I'm in the zone, dialed, rocking the tunes or whatever, and just being very mindful of that. And this is probably a part of it, giving someone else to speak into your life.
Mm.
You know, so for some of this, that could be a spouse to be like, hey, I want to do these two things well. Can I check in with you every couple days and tell you how that's going? Or if you see me going off the rails, come, hello, McFly me. Hello, McFly.
Yeah.
You've forgotten the biggie on the eye chart. And here's the wonderful thing: better is Psalm 84. Better is one day in His courts than 1,000 elsewhere.
Yeah.
So when we're with the Lord, when we're knowing with the Lord, we have exponential increase in favor.
Mm.
And so if you're thinking, oh, spreadsheet, I got to get this budget, you could be in the presence of the Lord for 90 seconds and He'll unlock that answer for you. That you could be drooling at your laptop for 4 hours trying to solve, and just being like, hey, I'm going to build an atmosphere. I'm going to build an altar of worship in my entrepreneur space for the Lord. And before I sit down on my laptop, I'm going to say, Lord, I invite you into this atmosphere. Give me revelation and insight by the power of the Holy Spirit. Give me the answer, because 1 in 1,000, if you divide if you divide a day into 1,000, how many is it? How many seconds?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
A day into
I think it's 86 seconds or something. It's like 90 seconds.
Yeah.
So think about this. He's saying better is 90 seconds with me in a day than doing anything else the rest of the day. Do we believe that? And if we were full force, connected, knowing, fully present 90 seconds with the Lord, what that would unleash on us in the realm of business and finance and relationship. I mean, like Jesus showed this as in the Gospels. The lady, the woman with the bleeding issue presses through a crowd who everyone would know she was unclean.
Right.
And so she's pressing through a cloud, making everyone else unclean. And she is so desperate for the presence of the Lord. She's like, I don't care what people think. I don't care. I am so desperate for the Lord's healing. I just know her faith is incredible. She says, I just know if I touch him, I'm going to be healed. And the power of healing went out from him without him doing anything, because he was fully present with his Father. And the Father's resources that were available were just emanating from him. And he walks into situations and the demons saw him coming and they would flee or bow down. And he's not even saying anything. So there's just this power, this 1 in 1,000. Better is one day in my courts than 1,000. Or better is 90 seconds in pure, staring, glory engagement with the Lord daily than anything else I could do. And when that's a rhythm in my life and that's a pattern in my life, it's going to touch everything else. It's going to touch my marriage. It's going to touch my kids. It's going to touch my business, because the sin of Psalm 90, oh Lord, bless the work of my hands.
Yeah.
It's not saying don't work. God does everything spiritually. Just pray to me and I'll do it. It's not, no, there's work. There's work in my hands, but I don't want to put my hand to anything unless I'm engaged with the Lord and giving him permission to give me your solution, your answer. Help me bring the kingdom to my community and my city and my world, and give me the plan, Lord.
Yeah. So let's talk
there's spiritual warfare.
Yes.
Because you're going to be attacked. If those things are true, you're going to, like, the enemy will come at you to distract you with the little things that you think are innocuous.
Right.
And it's really like, I'm stealing your 90 seconds today.
Yeah.
I'm just like, It's like the movie of Alcatraz digging out of prison with a spoon. You just chip a little bit every day in the negative. He just chips a little bit of your spiritual sensitivity that's spiritual warfare. It's not sending you dragons and like, a plague of Wiccans show up at your door. Although those things are real, I believe. It's just numbing you. I'm just chipping away at this wall just a little bit every day, and pretty soon there's an escaping hole, and your spiritual life has been drained, and because you've been distracted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes into something that I wanted to bring up too. That I don't think anybody in this room thinks that systems are bad. Is when the Spirit of the Lord hovered over the waters in the beginning, and when we see him first interact with his creation, you see him putting order, chaos, and building systems and structures of the sun and the moon and the stars and the day and the night, and how all these things interact with each other, with creation on the land and creation in the oceans, and even procreation with the animals multiplying, and eventually humans doing that as well. And tells us to do that, to go out into the earth and to subdue it. Basically, make Eden go over the entire earth, recreate what I just did everywhere else. And that's the commission that he mandate. And so what do you guys think of that? I mean, you talked a little bit about there, Chris, with the idea of structure your life in a way to where you die on the hill of getting those 90 seconds at least. And if you can get more, make that happen. And Dianna and Yesuto, you guys are already doing the Sabbath, right? So like you're dying on the hill of like, I got all these things going on, but not today, because today is the Lord's day. And that is a system that you guys are holding to, which God modeled at the beginning. On the seventh day, he rested. And so you're doing the exact same thing, following a system that he created for a reason. And I believe that the Sabbath is the start of the week for a reason, not the end of the week, because you start with them. It's kind of like tithing, right? You tithe the best 10% that you have, the first fruits that you have, because otherwise you're not trusting him if it comes to the end of the paycheck and you have 10% left over. That's not the point. The point is, this is yours. I'm trusting you with everything else. And same thing with your time, especially entrepreneur, I think. This is your time. It's time. And I'm going to trust you that you're going to help me figure out this spreadsheet. I'm going to trust you that you're going to help me understand what I'm supposed to say in this meeting that I haven't prepared for, this pitch or whatever else. Because I'm going to, what's yours, it belongs to you. And so what do you guys think of systems and structures, and how do you guys interact with that to give it back to the Lord?
Do you want to start?
That's such a big question. I think the thing I'll start with, I think from like a personal life structure standpoint, I really resonate a lot with say, which is, I think structures are like helpful boundaries to like the first things first. And so that's where I think like, Yesuto can nail me for this. I'm notorious of like, sometimes on the weekend, there's like a show that I'm a binge watcher. Like I just want to binge, like no matter what it is, I'm like, if I finish the series, then I'm not tempted to watch. And lo and behold, we'll always have, just want to watch an extra episode. And then we have to go to bed. And then I'm like, oh, well, I can't get up early because now I want my 8 hours of sleep. I'll be like, then why didn't you stop earlier, right? And I would get so mad at myself. I'm like, oh, I really want my 8 hours. There's a healthy boundary. Like if I want 8 hours of sleep, and like subtract 8 plus hours, right? At least 8 hours, right? And that's a good structure to just make myself a functioning human. That being said, I think the idea I've been toying a lot with is this kind of like intermingling of like being okay with interruption. So I'm not over-engineer things. Chris, you mentioned our like deep love of calendar and scheduling. Wild. Like the fact that when we think about lunch, like we probably already are like, oh, a lunch is an hour, because that's literally like the time that we think in of like our time slots in our schedule, right? So I think I'm trying to be open to the Holy Spirit, like works in us, like how to be open to opportunities, just like not to be like, structured, but not controlling. And that's something that I'm trying to be very good with. And the thing I'm trying to do, which I'm doing 90% of the time, not actually doing this, but trying to be like, what is like the main one or two things? And it's like an essentialism book. I don't know if anyone's read that book, but just like, if you keep the first few things first, like most other things are actually not going to be important at the end of the day. And I think, Casey, when we first had a coffee chat, I think you said something similar of like, you pick like one thing to focus on for your business in that day. And whatever else happens, amazing, but at least you're making progress. There's some structure, but it's also not control, like this obsessive, like tight knuckling. So yeah, I think it's more like the bumpers of bowling, of like keeps you in bounds, but it's like you're walking down the bowling alley trying to just like shove it at the bowling pins at the last second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. With there's like this fallacy of, if I'm busy, I'm getting something done, and that's what happens. Structure, right? So it's the chaotic urgency stuff, the tyranny of the urgent, where you do things because if I don't, then I'm not making progress.
Yeah.
We lost him.
Chris has been struggling.
I'm back. Yeah, no,
like,
I'm out. Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, that tyranny of the urgent is something that without structure, that's what's going to rule your life, and you're going to find yourself busy doing things that just don't really move anything forward. So yeah, I think it is 1 to 3 things every day that are intentional is really all you rush almost anything and to if you do it intentionally.
Yeah.
And then you have so much time after that, so much time to do the other things. If you limit yourself too, I think that's the other thing with structure is like a structure is not something that should fill up every hour, like you're saying, Dianna, or every half hour of your day, the way you think of in increments. It should be something that says, okay, something needs to be accomplished today for the business, and it is A, B, and C. All right, maybe I got 3 things that have to get done today to move the ball downfield. But after that, I'm kind of free. And so now I can start thinking through other things of the business that I haven't had time for, and give myself space to not do it, but to just think about it. Or I can schedule another meeting because I got slots open. Or the most important thing is maybe I can take a step away from that and spend more time with my family because they really need time with me right now. And so you can take it from priority, God, then family, then work, and say, okay, work needs to get these 3 things done. But if I'm not abiding, I'll try to abide first. Like that's my thing. But and I've usually found first out of that, after I write my list, they're usually the right things. Like Chris, you were saying, he gives you that. He can give you a spreadsheet thing that you've been drooling over and haven't been able to figure out. That's so good, because usually when I do come out of that 90 seconds or that half an hour spending time with him, and then I write down my big 3, they usually move the ball way more down. If I didn't do that first. And I think that is directly connected. Yeah.
I love that. And it's so funny. I was talking to a young guy that I'm mentoring right now, and he asked what systems I have. And I was like, honestly, if you were looking at my day, you would think I have no systems. I think I have like light ADHD, and my calendar's always a mess. My computer's always a mess, but it's working for me. So I've been trying to reflect on like, what are my actual systems that look a little different than what other people might do. And I think what I've realized is my systems are more like week long and not daily. So I think like what a large part of how I structure my life and balancing work number 1, job number 2, and then is a lot of like figuring out what do I need to prioritize at a certain point in the week? And then how do I make sure I'm setting aside the right amount of time for those things in that period? And I think tying it back to putting the first things first, it's like the two things I'm doing right now around pastoral work for the most part are, one is leading a community group where we're actually developing, me and the other co-leader are developing our own curriculum because we want to do something kind of unique with our community right now. And then the second is mentorship. And so it's like, okay, well, I know we have the community group Monday nights, not visiting family. And then I know I'm doing some discipleship on Thursday. So those things in my week, I'm setting aside the time Friday, Saturday to put together the curriculum for Monday. And I'm setting aside this time Thursday morning to have with my discipleship. And then the rest of the week is this weird conglomeration of like, I know I need to get X, Y, and Z done at work by Thursday also. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, who knows what that. For my seminary classes, some of those things are also due Thursday. So I know Tuesday, Wednesday night, I'm doing. So it's kind of like this. So I guess my systems are a lot of like, what do I need to get done any given week? How do I bucket out which days need to be done by? And then kind of spread the work out amongst those. But then make sure that as I think about what are things related to my faith, those things, and it's funny because I was talking about the like missing my morning prayer at times. I think when it's involving community, then I'm like, well, this is non-negotiable. I have to be there for the community and show up for the community. And I need to make sure that's true about my daily one-on-one time with God too. But yeah, so my system just looks a little chaotic from the outside, I guess, but I realize it's more week by week instead of day by day.
I'm going to throw one last question here as we kind of get closer to the end of the hour, because I don't want to take up all of your guys' time at your family's house and stuff. When it comes to money and Christian entrepreneurship, Christian business owners, founders, we have to have money, right? Like that, have to, and we have to pay attention to it. We have to focus on it. You guys are in maybe a great spot because your whole business is around maybe the right way of doing that and dealing with it. Right. Really thinking in that way, I'm just having to try to ask people for it or try to prove that we deserve it, and so there's but I guess for me, the trip up sometimes happens when it comes to, let's say we get it. Let's say we get the money in. We talked about nonprofit versus for-profit last week, which I love the idea that there's just so many different ways that we can do kingdom work. But if we're thinking about kingdom, letting God's kingdom come and his will being done on earth as it is in heaven, with economics, how should we, if money comes in, how should we start thinking about as we scale, using that money to bring his kingdom more fully into the world that we live in? Should we be thinking that way? Is it something where maybe there should be business models around this idea of making more kingdom work happen as Christian entrepreneurs? Or is this something where we should, just say, okay, God, like you're telling me what to do with this money. This doesn't have to be necessarily like a system, but this is something that I'm dedicating to you in this way. How do we bring the kingdom into our economics as it begins to scale? I guess that's the question. How do we bring the kingdom of God into our economics as we begin to scale our companies?
You really saved the easiest question for the last, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Not going to go over it all.
No. I'll just throw out one idea. I'm a big believer that I think scale can be an amazing thing when it's not the measure of success. I think we've talked a lot in our business of if we what would we define as success? And I think we want to help as many people as possible, but if it becomes a failure, if we don't help millions, we only help thousands, I think that's where it can be dangerous. So I think scale can be an amazing thing. I think there's like scale within maybe like healthy boundaries. I think one thing I love about entrepreneurship is that there is the opportunity to think in so many multifaceted ways about like how every part of your work gets done. So not just like the product you're delivering to the market, but how are you hiring? How are you treating your staff? How are you, I don't know, just like structuring your entities? How are you thinking about sourcing? Like there's just so many really cool ways that I think you can spread gospel principles. Just even like treating suppliers well and just like, or just like giving your business partner, like not skimping them for every penny that they could get, but just feeling like you both got walked away with a good deal. Like, I just think there's so many ways you can do that, and scale can allow that in a lot of ways. And I think there's something good about like, if something's working, grow it. And if it's not working, don't try to grow that. But I think, yeah, I think there's just, it has to be kept within check. And that's maybe where the accountability, like it just, the scale itself can't be the measure of success on its own. But I think there's a lot of great business principles in the Bible, I think, or like business, not just for profit, but just great economics. And it's kind of like, I just think about like, whatever you do with excellence, like do unto the Lord. And I think that that really applies to how we think about every like thing that we're doing. So
yeah.
I also studied economics, so it's probably, I don't know the best person to ask about this. It might be more of an economics geek than I probably should be. But I think there's a lot of great potential with it, but it just can't be its own. It can't, like, success and scale can't be, the success can't just be in the scale, maybe. But I think there's many things.
I agree with that. Let's say that. Yeah. Let's say that scale's not like distracting you, but it just happens, right?
Right.
Let's just take it as God just breathed on it in a way to where it did grow and hit thousands of people. Because right now, was it hitting? You know, it's hitting your family, it's hitting other people that you know. But let's say that it does hit hundreds to 1,000 families. So the question, as it scales in any regard, not necessarily even in millions, to the degree that God wants it to scale, then how do we impact the world with the kingdom of God? Where's the mindset there, and what are some that, again, when we're thinking about laying up your treasures in heaven, like be doing that with while we're accumulating treasures on earth, I guess, as money coming in, how are we thinking of how to shape the world for the kingdom as it goes back out? Does that make sense?
It does. And I'll respond a little bit to that too. I think, one of the things Dianna mentioned earlier, in this initial phase where it's not scaling and where, she quit her job, I'm planning to quit mine soon. It's this idea of like, give us this day our daily bread, right? That Jesus said that's like one of the most important things for us to be praying to God each day. And then, we go back to where that's coming from and the idea of manna, right? God was giving the Israelites daily bread, just enough for the day, not enough for tomorrow. And I think there's something really powerful about being in a position, even like you were saying for yourself, Casey, where you're asking for money, you're trying to, for us, we're trying to raise money, we're trying to get investors. And it's just that idea of like being able to trust that God will provide the money, I think is one thing now. But then to your point, let's say we have all the money, it's growing. We, the money's coming in. How do you keep that mindset of God's the one providing it? And it's not now that I need to make sure that I'm in a good place. I do believe in saving. I do believe in retirement funds, but I think that the big thing for me of how, let's say, successful Christian business people can be honoring God and growing the kingdom economically is by being more generous than they might be comfortable with, or than they might even be counseled to do. And I've heard different business leaders talk about, giving away a substantial amount of money. Some people have talked about not just even tithing on your income, but tithing on your net worth at a certain point when your net worth has grown quite a bit, and start cutting that down. How do you make sure that then, and this is something we'll have to, continue to wrestle with. How do we make sure we don't then start to get too reliant on that bank account as things get easier financially, and actually keep that mindset of give us this day our daily bread. And so I think, yeah, there's a lot to financial generosity that people who have success economically can continue to lean into in a way that's uncomfortable and in a way that I think the world often tells us not to, from a sense of, even if it's give your 10% and keep the rest, what if you give 50%? Because, you can live off that other 50 and know you won't have as much in savings for a rainy day, but you might have some, and God will bless you. But it's just kind of being open to the guiding of as we each have a sense of how much to give away, and having that idea that we're stewards, right? This is not something that is just for us to be blessed. This is something for us to keep blessing others.
That's cool. Dianna, you were talking a lot about that generosity stuff as well. I think for the first time we talked, you were talking about the summit and everything, and how there was like the totally different perspective. And you just want to show that to people and give it. Do you have like any dreams of like, man, if this is something I feel called to be generous about?
Generous about? Dreams. Well, I don't know if this is getting to your question exactly, but I would say, I think, like, I personally grew up in a household where like financial stability is like how you love your family. And I think there's a lot of good like truths to that. The flip side is that like there'll be anxiety easily about like not saving enough or things like that too. Someone said once, and I should look up who said this because I quote all the time and never give credit, but just the idea like you can never outgive God. And I think that's something, this is not the prosperity of like, oh, if I give $100, God will give me 200. He might not, but it's not about the monetary exchange. And I think one of the best parts that I think about the work that, even though we started with the topic of money, it's ultimately coming back to relationships. And I think the thing that I would just like, my dream, I think, would just be like, people would just be like radically generous with like any way that they can. Like, even if you're just like, if you're like a gift for like words of encouragement, just like, it never hurts to just like shoot someone a text of encouragement. Like, it's just like, you never know what that message might mean to someone. If you're like, I don't know, if you're gifted with like a specific skill set, just being like willing to do it. And I think we talked about this a little bit last time, of everything doesn't have to be transactional. And so much of our world is transactional, about like social influence. I don't know. It's not, these are things like the benefits to who Jesus is. And so that's why I think I'm so passionate about, like, it's not just about financial generosity. It's about like whatever you have to give it without expecting much in return, but God will just constantly give you so much more than you can expect. So yeah. So I think that's my dream. It's just like this radical generosity of like, God's given us so much and will always give us so much, not the prosperity part, but that's where they would say it's like more blessed to give than receive. So I think that's why touching on the money subject is actually the most interesting part to be, because I feel like I would love to see more people just like see Sam's point, like give it away, and for myself even to be more generous to give it away. And it changed it hearing Yesuto say that, like, I saw God as a father, because I think when I started to generosity, like literally think about God in terms of generosity, it changed how I thought about God. I was like, oh, God's not just like good, he's like what, like wildly generous. And that's just a feeling that I can't even put words to.
That's awesome. Chris, you've been silent, man. What do you got?
Yeah, I think like you would build. So if you're in a startup mode, like I think you think from $1, right? From revenue $1, be thinking of this. Yeah. And then if you're running a business or have a side hustle, even something, be thinking about, hey, how could you brainstorm, or I call it spray. You make a list on the wall, Post-its on the wall, and you just dream about what would giving look like, and coming up, just like, and one utilitarian way is like, when you're making a financial forecast, you're going to find you know, well, what percent of X is going to be ad spend, right? Or marketing, or you know, or paid content for Instagram or whatever. What percent? And a lot of times when I would build budgets like that, I'm doing it like percentage based, right? Like, and then year to year adjust the percents, and think about, hey, if we were going to be a giving company, or I was going to give financial to this, what percent should I start with? So for every dollar, I give away a penny. For every $100, I give it, and just start with a percent. But then there can be the giveaway money, but then of course, there's all kinds of ways you can do that, where you're writing checks to a charity, or you're taking it as a investor or an employee, and then you're just earmarking, hey, whatever I get this as an individual from this company, I'm going to do, right? To like, hey, we're going to sponsor a little league team, or we're going to give sports scholarships for whatever, disenfranchised youth, or like, you know, or we're going to put away a college scholarship fund, you know, like, or you could tie it to your human resource policies. We're going to give X percent available to a pool for preschool or daycare or childcare, or employee bonuses, just like employee on, employee void, you know, like, so you have like 800 or 100 employees, and every quarter all the other employees get to nominate someone, and they get $1,000 cash bonus. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can be giving and blessing in your community that could actually be a tax write-off, which would actually make you more profitable. You know, like, there's all kinds of things you can think, but I think one of the things I think is thinking in percentage, like, okay, what would I love to say about our company in 10 years if we were successful, that we had given away X percent of profits, or X percent of blah, blah, blah to blah, 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 and make it personal, because you're building a business for a reason. And what are the reasons? How do the giving reasons line up with what what you started the business for? And you can codify that in your spreadsheets and all that, or you could just say, have a mental agreement with you and your spouse, like, hey, percentage of wages I get from this endeavor, we're going to put away for this. And I think, you know, what is it, Psalm 50? He owns all the sheep on the hills. Like, you can't outgive God, and you can't out-own God.
Right.
It's a blessing. And parable of the talents and the minas, there's 10 talent businesses and there's 1 talent businesses, and you can be talented, but on some, like, the 10 talent business is above the pay grade of a 1 talent business, but you still got 1 talent, you still got to steward that well. So how do you tie in the Psalm 50 heart of, like, he owns all the sheep on the hills, and he gave you, in this time and place, you get to steward this part of that. How am I going to bless others through it? And it just doesn't have to be Christian, religious, churchy ways that you can bless others. And I personally love blessing your employees. I mean, whether you're doing that with benefits or cash bonus, or just incentivize, hey, what are the things, the charities you want us to give to in your communities? And I think that goes a long way to building a great business too, because you have employees that are vested or interested or feel valued for, you know, whatever.
That's really good.
That's great.
I always think, if we treat, like, this is the last thing, then he's probably gonna boot us out soon, but to your point, Chris, I think sometimes, like, a lot of our society, we're solving problems that we could have fixed if our businesses were designed better. Like, as I say, people will always want to, like, feel better about giving to homeless shelters, but they, like, are way more hesitant to invest in, like, better paying stable jobs that will prevent someone from, like, the risk of becoming homeless because they, you know, don't have enough of a safety net, something too. So I think that, to your point, Chris, I just want to double down. Like, there's so much power investing, like, in your employees and the people in your community, in a way that's, like, putting them just empowering them, because I think it just works wonders. And like, there's a money multiplier. This is my economics tip of the day. Money multiplier, like how fast money moves through systems matters. And like your willingness to not like just hoard and to say like, I'm going to invest more in my employees because they're going to invest more in local businesses and they're going to invest in their kids' education. Like money can move fast if we let it. So I just really love that point, Chris. I just wanted to double down on that.
Love that. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool.
All right. Well, what I want to do here, we're just going to close this out for tonight. Sorry, we're going over. I mean, it's a fun.
Yeah.
More. But Dianna, Yesuto, how can people find you and connect if they want to in the future to know more about Opto AI and know more about you guys in the future?
I would say, well, I'll say and then Dianna can say, but I think so we have a website, joinopto.ai. So it's pretty straightforward, OPTO. And then if you want to learn more, we are offering right now free one-on-one or one-on-two financial coaching actually right now for the next couple of months as we're still growing the business. In addition to our product, which is live, which is the AI financial coaching. If you want to get in touch with us, I think the easiest thing for me is actually on LinkedIn. So you can look me up, Yesuto Shah, shoot me a cold message. And what about you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Dianna Shaw. You'll see that with the Opto AI, or contact@optofinancial.com is our business email. But reach out about anything, our startup or generosity. Obviously, really passionate about that too.
That
so happy to I think we're, Casey, to your point, the unity of the church. I think one of the things we love about generosity is like it has to be like the most unifying part of all Christians. Is this act of generosity. So happy to also connect with people on that topic too.
Yeah, look up generousgiving.org also. Great organization.
That's awesome. Thank you. Chris, where can we find you? Oh, muted, brother.
We just lost you.
No.
LinkedIn.
Like,
LinkedIn, Chris Rosentrade with a K, or things are a little in flux with my nonprofit, but you can find me at clashcreative.org for what's happening next. So, yeah.
Cool.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, guys. Let's go ahead and just close this out in prayer. And we'll night. Chris, you want to pray over us and pray over Dianna and Yesuto?
I do. Hey,
thank you,
Lord, thank you that you want to know us. And you came here and you gave us life and a path to the Heavenly Father. And thank you that you own all the sheep. you own all of the sheep on a thousand hills. And that you invite us into kingdom building. And ask you just to bless all the builders out there. All the I'm thinking of Noah. Who's the biggest builder? Noah? You called him out. You gave him a plan to build. You provided the animals, but he had to do the work, a lifetime of work, and it was for a purpose that he probably didn't see coming. And so like Noah, Lord, give us the plans, give us the visions in the night, give us the resources, and help us steward them well. Let us not negate the priority of knowing you. We don't want religion, we want relationship, Lord. And how tragic it would be to have $1 billion business, and yet we're standing before you and you say, depart from me, I never knew you. Lord, let that not be us. Bless the work of our hands, Lord. Bless the work of our hands. We partner with you. Show us where to build. Don't let us build a house in vain that you aren't a part of. Thank you for this kingdom. Thank you for that we are here building. Thank you that you give us a chance to honor you daily. And we choose the one over the 1,000. We choose to know you. And we bless your name with our works, with our words, with the meditation of our heart, as Psalm 19 says. Thank you, Lord. Amen.